The grocery rescue. The plastic handles bit into Maya's fingers, turning them a mottled red. One bag, overloaded with cans of tomatoes and chickpeas, her ambitious attempt at homemade chili for the week, threatened to split. She shifted her weight, trying to redistribute the load, but only managed to nudge the milk carton precariously closer to the edge of the other bag. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the crisp autumn air. Why had she decided to walk to the store today? She should have just braved the crowded bus. A rogue gust of wind whipped a fallen maple leaf across her face, sticking to her lip gloss. She spat it out with a frustrated sigh. This was a disaster. Looks like you could use a hand, a calm voice said. Maya jumped, startled. A man stood a few feet away, his expression a mixture of amusement and concern. He had kind eyes, framed by laugh lines, and his salt and pepper hair was neatly combed. He was older, definitely older than anyone she usually associated with, but there was a comfortable warmth about him. Oh, she stammered, momentarily flustered. Yeah, actually. I might need a little help. These bags are challenging. He chuckled, a low, pleasant sound. I'm Tom, by the way. I live just across the way. And those do look like they're plotting a rebellion. He gestured towards the overflowing bags. Let me take one or two. Relief washed over Maya. I'm Maya. And please, anything would be amazing. I think my circulation is cutting off. She shifted her weight again, allowing Tom to gently lift the heavier grocery bag filled with the metal orbs of future chili. He hoisted it with surprising ease. Where are you headed? Tom asked, adjusting the bag on his shoulder. Apartment 3B, just at the end of the hall, she replied, grabbing the remaining bag that was still lighter than what Tom was carrying. They started walking, the silence comfortable rather than awkward. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows as they strolled down the sidewalk. So, chilly, huh? Tom asked, breaking the quiet. Ambitious. Yeah, well, I saw a recipe online, Maya admitted, feeling a blush creep up her neck. It looked easier than it probably is. I'm not exactly a culinary genius. Tom smiled. Don't worry, we all start somewhere. My first attempt at lasagna ended up looking like modern art. Edible but abstract. Maya laughed, a genuine, light sound. I can picture that. I'm more of a ramen noodles and takeout kind of chef, myself. Nothing wrong with that, Tom said. Sometimes, simple is best. They reached the entrance to her building. Thank you so much, Tom, Maya said sincerely. I really appreciate it. I was starting to think I was going to be stuck out there all day. Anytime, Maya. It was my pleasure. Just let me know if you need help with the chili later, he said with a wink. As she fumbled with her keys, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a simple act of neighborly kindness. There was something different about Tom. Something comforting and intriguing all at once. She glanced back at him as he walked away, a curious smile playing on her lips. Maybe living alone in a new city wouldn't be so bad after all. A warm smile. The bag of ripe peaches nearly slipped from Maya's grasp. She juggled it, the sweet scent momentarily distracting her as she navigated the narrow aisle of her tiny kitchen. Tom's offer to help had been so unexpected. It wasn't just the act itself, but the way he'd done it, a quiet certainty in his voice, a genuine warmth radiating from his eyes. She remembered the crinkles around them as he smiled, a network of fine lines etched by time, and she suspected a great deal of laughter. Brown eyes, flecked with gold. Had she ever really noticed them before? His hands, calloused but gentle as he took the heavier bags, were the hands of someone who worked with the earth, not a stranger. Unpacking the rest of the groceries, Maya found herself replaying the conversation, each word, each inflection. He'd asked about her classes, really listened to her rambling explanation of Professor Harding's notoriously difficult astrophysics course. He hadn't tried to impress her with his own knowledge or experiences, just offered a steady, encouraging presence. That was it, wasn't it? The steadiness. A lighthouse in her often turbulent sea of anxieties. A flush crept up her neck. She grabbed a carton of milk, its chill doing little to quell the unexpected heat. This was ridiculous. He was her neighbor. And old enough to be, well, her father. But the thought didn't carry the weight it should have. Instead, her mind conjured up an image of him tending his garden, the sun glinting off his silvering hair, the easy curve of his lips as he hummed a tuneless melody. She began to notice him everywhere, or perhaps she was just looking for him. The glint of his porch light as she studied late into the night, the distant sound of his lawnmower on Saturday mornings, the briefest glimpse of him watering his petunias. Each sighting was a tiny electric shock, a jolt that left her both exhilarated and slightly ashamed. Last night, she'd found herself lingering a little longer at the mailbox, hoping he'd emerge from his house. He hadn't. She'd chided herself for being so foolish, so obvious. Yet, the hope persisted, a fragile seedling pushing through the hard soil of her common sense. Maybe, just maybe, he felt something too. Or was she simply projecting her own burgeoning feelings onto his simple act of kindness? The peaches, now nestled in a bowl on the counter, seemed to mock her with their sweetness. She plucked one, its velvety skin warm beneath her fingers. As she bit into it, the juice exploded on her tongue, a burst of sunshine and summer. A warm smile played on her lips, mirroring the one she so often saw, and increasingly, hoped to see on Tom's face. Borrowing sugar and conversation. The marigolds were drooping. Pathetic little orange flags of botanical surrender. Maya knew exactly why she'd planted them in the wrong kind of soil. She'd read about soil composition, of course, absorbing paragraphs on pH levels and drainage, but translating theory into practice felt muddy. She spotted Tom tending his rose bushes, each bloom a perfect velvet crimson. He wore faded denim overalls and a straw hat that shadowed his eyes. Perfect. Tom? Got a minute, she called, trying for a casual tone that felt anything but. He straightened, a slow, deliberate motion. Maya. Everything all right? Yeah, fine, just, the marigolds aren't doing so hot. She gestured weakly towards her flower bed, the drooping blooms a testament to her horticultural ineptitude. I think it's the soil. You seem to have quite the green thumb. Any advice? Tom chuckled, a low rumble in his chest. Marigolds are usually pretty forgiving. What kind of soil did you use? Maya launched into a detailed, jargon-filled explanation, peppering her sentences with terms like loam and perlite, hoping to impress him with her book knowledge. Tom listened patiently, occasionally interjecting with simple, practical questions. Finally, he suggested, sounds like it's too dense. Needs some compost, maybe some sand to lighten it up. Compost, right. Of course. Maya mentally berated herself for forgetting the obvious. I'll see if I can find some. The next day, Maya found herself back at Tom's fence. Hey, Tom. I was wondering, do you happen to have a trowel I could borrow? And maybe a small shovel. I can't seem to find mine. A blatant lie. Her gardening tools were neatly stored in her garage. Tom didn't seem suspicious. Sure thing. Come on around. He led her to his shed, a small, weathered building overflowing with tools. The air inside smelled of sawdust and oil. While he rummaged for the trowel and shovel, Maya's gaze was drawn to a half-finished wooden birdhouse resting on a workbench. Intricate carvings adorned the roof, tiny flowers and leaves rendered with astonishing detail. That's beautiful, she said, genuinely impressed. Did you make it? Tom paused, a hint of pride flickering in his eyes. Been dabbling in woodworking for years. Keeps me busy. He handed her the trowel and shovel. Here you go. Be careful with those. The shovel's got a bit of an edge. As she accepted the tools, her fingers brushed against his. A jolt, unexpected and undeniably electric, shot up her arm. She quickly withdrew her hand, feeling a blush creep up her neck. Thanks, she mumbled, suddenly flustered. I'll bring them back soon. No rush, Tom said, his gaze steady. Gardening's a marathon, not a sprint. Maya nodded, her heart still racing. She hurried back to her own yard, the borrowed tools clutched tightly in her hands. The drooping marigolds seemed to mock her with their lifeless orange petals. She had a lot to learn, about gardening, and more importantly, about navigating the complicated terrain of her own heart. Stories and quiet evenings. The aroma of sandalwood clung to the air as Tom led Maya further into his home. It wasn't overpowering, just a subtle warmth that layered over the scent of wood shavings and beeswax. He gestured to a globe tucked in the corner, its surface worn smooth in places. That old thing's seen more of the world than I have, he chuckled, running a calloused hand over its faded countenance. Each dent and scratch tells a story. He launched into tales of his younger days, backpacking through Southeast Asia, volunteering on a coffee plantation in Guatemala, and trekking across the Andes. Maya listened, mesmerized, the stories painting vivid pictures in her mind. She, who had barely left her home state, felt a pang of envy and a thrill of vicarious adventure. Tom's eyes sparkled as he recounted bartering for spices in a bustling Moroccan market, the cacophony of sounds and vibrant colors seeming to fill the room. He even pulled out a small, intricately carved wooden bird he'd bought from a craftsman in Bali, its wings spread in perpetual flight. You've seen so much, Maya breathed, turning the bird over in her hands. The details were astonishing. It's incredible. Tom smiled, a hint of sadness flickering across his face. That was a lifetime ago. Before Margaret got sick. He led her to his workshop, a small space crammed with tools and half-finished projects. A rocking chair sat patiently waiting for its final coat of varnish, while a chessboard with exquisitely carved pieces occupied a nearby workbench. Maya ran her fingers along the smooth, curved back of the chair. You made all this. Keeps me busy, he admitted, his voice a little rough. After Margaret, well, the quiet got to be too much. So I started making things. Giving shape to the silence, I suppose. Maya understood, or at least she thought she did. The silence in her own small apartment often felt deafening, a constant reminder of her own loneliness. She looked around the workshop, at the tangible proof of Tom's creativity and resilience. It's beautiful, Tom. All of it. He picked up a small wooden box, its lid inlaid with mother-of-pearl. Margaret always loved these, he said softly, his gaze distant. I made her one every year for her birthday. The air thickened with unspoken grief. Maya hesitated, unsure how to respond. She wanted to offer comfort, but the words felt inadequate, clumsy. Instead, she simply said, she must have been very special. Tom nodded, his eyes glistening. She was. She taught me the value of quiet evenings, of simple pleasures. We used to sit on the porch, just listening to the crickets and watching the stars. He paused, then looked at Maya with a searching gaze. It's funny, isn't it? How the simplest things can be the most profound. Maya felt a blush creep up her neck. She met his gaze, a tentative smile playing on her lips. The sandalwood scent seemed stronger now, warmer, more inviting. She wondered what it would be like to share a quiet evening with Tom, listening to the crickets and watching the stars. The thought was both terrifying and incredibly appealing. I should probably get going, she said, her voice barely a whisper. All right, Tom replied, though his expression suggested he wished she would stay. Thank you for listening to my old stories, Maya. It means a lot. As she walked back to her apartment, the image of the wooden bird, forever caught in flight, lingered in her mind. The quiet of her apartment felt different tonight, less oppressive, more expectant. She knew she would be back to hear more of Tom's stories, to learn more about the men who found solace in woodworking and quiet evenings. And maybe, just maybe, to find a little solace herself. Conflicted hearts. He's nice, Sarah. Really nice. Maya swirled the straw in her iced latte, avoiding Sarah's knowing gaze. But it's stupid, right? I mean, he's practically my dad's age. Sarah leaned back against the park bench, the afternoon sun dappling through the leaves. Nice how? And practically isn't actually. How old is he, anyway? 57, Maya mumbled, the number feeling like a confession. Sarah whistled softly. Okay, yeah, that's a gap. But age is just a number, Maya. It's about the connection. Do you connect with him? Maya sighed. That's the problem. I do. We talk about books, movies, even politics, and he actually listens. He doesn't just nod and wait for his turn to speak. He really listens. And he remembers things I tell him. Like about my fear of public speaking. A blush crept up her neck. He even gave me tips. See? Sarah said, triumphantly. Connection. What's the worst that could happen? You explore it and it fizzles out. Better than wondering what if for the rest of your life. Later that evening, hunched over her textbooks, Maya wrestled with her thoughts. 57. The number echoed in her mind, a stark reminder of the chasm between them. Society would judge. Her parents would freak. What if she was just infatuated with the novelty of his attention? Was she confusing kindness with something more? She pictured his face, the crinkles around his eyes when he smiled, the way he always seemed to know the right thing to say. Damn it. She slammed her textbook shut. This was ridiculous. She needed to focus. Midterms were looming. She'd bury herself in study groups, join the debate club, anything to push Tom Ashton out of her head. The next day, she threw herself into campus life with a vengeance. She spent hours in the library, surrounded by stacks of books. She joined a study group for her history class, forcing herself to participate even when her nerves threatened to overwhelm her. She even went to a party with her dorm mates, enduring the deafening music and forced small talk. But even amidst the cacophony of voices and flashing lights, Tom's quiet presence lingered in her thoughts. She imagined him in his garden, tending to his roses, a world away from the chaotic scene before her. A pang of longing, sharp and unexpected, pierced through her forced cheerfulness. She excused herself, claiming a headache, and hurried back to the relative quiet of her dorm room. As she drifted off to sleep, the image of Tom's kind eyes was the last thing she saw. Misinterpretations. The aroma of aged paper and dark-roasted coffee permeated Tom's study, usually a balm to Maya's jangled nerves. Today, however, the comforting scent did little to quell the anxious flutters in her stomach. She'd entrusted him with her initial chapters, a historical romance nurtured for months, and he was absorbed in them, truly absorbed. His brow knit with concentration as he looked up, sunlight catching the rims of his spectacles. Maya, this is remarkably good. A thrill shot through her. Really? She strove for nonchalance, masking her eagerness. I feared it was too theatrical. Tom's smile, etching fine lines near his eyes, charmed her as always. Theatricality is the genre's lifeblood, isn't it? But you've anchored it with vibrant details, believable people. Lady Beatrice, in particular, shines. Such compelling complexity. He indicated a paragraph. Her internal war between obligation and yearning masterful. His praise washed over her, a welcome balm for insecurities she hadn't fully acknowledged. He wasn't merely being kind, he genuinely appreciated her work. Perhaps, even more enticingly, he appreciated her. In the following weeks, their rapport deepened, conversations blossoming into something more intimate. He escorted her home from the library one drizzly afternoon, sharing his umbrella, and a humorous anecdote about his own youthful, disastrous screenplay. Remembering her preferences, a steaming cup of her favorite tea always awaited her visits. Small tokens began appearing, a news article connected to her research, a poet's verse he thought she'd admire slipped beneath her doorway. Each act, each thoughtful gesture, felt like a secret language, a veiled declaration. Maya, emboldened by youthful hope and a touch of yearning, began to see romance in every interaction. The way her name lingered on his tongue, the warmth illuminating his gaze, the fleeting brush of his hand as he emphasized a point, they all solidified her conviction. He reciprocated her feelings. One evening, she discovered him among the roses, the air saturated with their heady perfume. Raising his head, a smudge of earth on his cheek, he greeted her with a smile. Maya, perfect timing. I had an idea, a celebration for your novel's progress. You've been laboring so diligently. He paused, meeting her eyes. Perhaps dinner? At that little trattoria you adore. Her breath hitched. Dinner? Just the two of them. This was the signal. The moment of truth. That sounds delightful, Tom, she replied, her voice betraying her nervousness. He chuckled, a warm, resonant sound. Wonderful. I was thinking, we might invite Mrs. Henderson along. She's been craving that new osso buco, and I know how fond you are of her company. 3 o'clock on Saturday. The world seemed to shift on its axis. Mrs. Henderson. 3 o'clock. It wasn't a date. It was a friendly get-together. A group event. The fragile bubble of her romantic imaginings, inflated with hopeful whispers, deflated with a painful sting. The smile plastered on her face felt brittle, and the carefully crafted confession she'd rehearsed evaporated into a chaotic swirl of disappointment and raw chagrin. Truth hurts. The scent of honeysuckle hung thick in the twilight air as Maya followed Tom into his small garden. The porch light cast long shadows, painting the overgrown flowerbeds in strokes of gold and black. She'd rehearsed this conversation 100 times, each version ending with Tom smiling, taking her hand, and, well, she hadn't gotten much further than that in her daydreams. He gestured to a weathered wooden bench nestled beneath a sprawling rose bush. Have a seat, Maya. What's on your mind? She fiddled with the hem of her sundress, the cotton suddenly feeling rough against her skin. Tom, I wanted to talk to you about something. He settled beside her, his presence both comforting and unnervingly close. Shoot. Taking a deep breath, she plunged in. I've been spending a lot of time with you lately and I've developed feelings for you. Strong feelings. I know the age difference is. She trailed off, her carefully constructed speech crumbling. Tom was silent for a long moment, the only sound the chirping of crickets. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and gentle. Maya, I care about you a great deal. You're bright, funny, and a wonderful person to be around. But. He paused, searching for the right words. I see you as a friend, a really good friend. Nothing more. The words landed like a physical blow. The air seemed to thicken, making it hard to breathe. The perfect fantasy she'd constructed shattered, leaving jagged edges of reality. She swallowed hard, trying to force down the lump in her throat. Oh, she managed, the sound barely audible. He reached out, his hand hovering over hers but not quite touching. I'm so sorry, Maya. I truly am. I never meant to lead you on, or give you the wrong impression. It's not your fault, she mumbled, even though a part of her desperately wanted to blame him. Blame him for his kindness, his attentiveness, his easy laughter that had made her heart sore. I misinterpreted things. The garden suddenly felt cold, the honeysuckle scent cloying and suffocating. She wanted to disappear, to rewind time and unsay everything. The thought of facing him, facing herself, after this was unbearable. Are you okay? He asked, his brow furrowed with concern. She forced a weak smile. Yeah, fine. Just surprised, I guess. The lie tasted bitter on her tongue. The truth was, she was devastated. Utterly and completely heartbroken. He sighed, the sound laced with regret. I value our friendship, Maya. I hope this doesn't change things between us. But she knew it would. How could it not? The easy camaraderie they'd shared was now tainted, poisoned by unspoken desires and unrequited longing. She stood up abruptly, needing to escape the suffocating atmosphere of his garden, his kindness, his rejection. I should go, she said, her voice trembling slightly. It's getting late. He stood with her, watching her walk away. Maya, he called after her, but she didn't turn back. She couldn't. The truth hurt too much. A new perspective. The aftersting lingered, a muted echo behind her ribs where sharp pain had been. Tom's gentle unraveling, replayed in her thoughts until worn thin, now registered not as rejection but redirection. Admiration isn't love, Maya, his kind voice had insisted, his brow a study in concern. She'd been perched on her porch swing, its rhythmic squeak a fragile anchor against turbulent thoughts. The setting sun had bled across the horizon in shades of peach and coral, a soft breeze whispering through the ancient oak. A tableau that usually soothed now felt like a spotlight on her inner chaos. But gazing at the vibrant display, a dawn of understanding broke. Tom's steady strength, his quiet acts of kindness, the unending patience he radiated, these were qualities she held in high regard. She respected his simple contentment, the loving care he lavished on his garden, his encyclopedic knowledge of avian visitors. But the crux remained, did she love him? The question hung, ponderous and unavoidable. The answer, when it surfaced, arrived as a silent sigh within her, no. Her affections were a tangled weave of thankfulness, respect, and a yearning for closeness, all mistaken for the grand passion. Tom, with his gentle wisdom, had snipped the knot, leaving a clean, liberating space. A genuine smile finally graced her lips. She desired his presence in her life, not as a lover but as something perhaps even more profound, a true friend. Someone to confide in, to learn from, to share the quiet beauties of existence. Inhaling deeply, she rose and crossed the lawn towards his house. His porch light glowed, illuminating the meticulous care he invested in his roses. A moment of hesitation, then she knocked. He answered, surprise flickering in his gaze. Maya, he greeted, his tone soft. Is everything all right? More than all right, Tom, she replied, her smile broadening. I was hoping we could talk. Over tea, perhaps. She indicated his garden with a nod. Your roses are especially radiant tonight. He studied her, a slow smile then blossoming across his face. I believe that can be arranged, he conceded, stepping back to welcome her. Come, let's sit on the back porch, the honeysuckles in full fragrance. As they strolled toward the back of the house, lightness returned to her step, banishing the weight of the past days. The air hummed with the sweet aroma of honeysuckle, punctuated by the cheerful chorus of crickets. It was the overture to a new perspective, a fresh chapter, and the blossoming of a genuine friendship. Friendship and new beginnings. The pizzeria throbbed with Friday night fever. Maya listlessly detached a pepperoni nub from her overloaded plate, struggling to follow Liam's monologue on his basketball exploits. Liam was agreeable. A sophomore like herself, he chattered about current TikTok crazes and the woes of molecular structures, subjects that drifted past her awareness. He embodied the image of what she should desire. Yet, a peculiar ennui clung to her. So I straight up denied Miller that shot, Liam declared, brandishing a dripping pizza slice. He was fuming. Maya feigned enthusiasm. Sounds intense. The truth was, Tom's absence resonated within her. She yearned for their dialogues on musty classics and celestial maps. She missed the peaceful accord of their shared labor in his garden, the verdant aroma of soil and burgeoning herbs permeating the atmosphere. Most of all, she missed his earnest attentiveness, his brow knit in contemplation as she unspooled her anxieties. Liam, in contrast, mostly waited for his turn at the microphone. The date concluded with an awkward sideways hug and a vague promise of future hangs. As Maya traversed the campus back to her dorm, slick pavement mirroring the electric glow of the surrounding buildings, she felt a growing conviction that she was trying to squeeze herself into a prefabricated role. The following morning, compelled by an unseen force, Maya gravitated towards Tom's secluded garden gate. The fragrant breath of honeysuckle saturated the air. She paused, then nudged the gate ajar. Tom was tending his tomato patch, a sheen of perspiration glistening on his forehead. He glanced up, his face blossoming into a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Maya. What a delightful surprise. He straightened, wiping the earth from his palms. Come on in, I just made a fresh pot. The kitchen emanated a comforting warmth, laced with the scents of cinnamon and brewed coffee beans. Tom filled a ceramic mug for her, and they settled at the compact wooden table. Maya found herself confiding, not about ephemeral trends or chemical formulas, but about her date with Liam, and the baffling disconnect she had experienced. Tom listened with unwavering patience, his gaze reflecting a deep understanding. When she had finished, he took a measured sip of his coffee, then offered, sometimes, Maya, the bonds we cherish most aren't with those we anticipate. And often, such connections aren't destined for romance. A wave of calm acceptance swept over her. He understood. There was no hint of offense or disappointment. He was simply Tom. I value our friendship, Maya, he continued, his voice quiet yet sincere. More than you might realize. And I would be loath to jeopardize that. She smiled, a genuine, unforced expression this time. Me neither, Tom. Me neither. As she assisted him in gathering the ripened tomatoes, the sun bathing her skin in warmth, Maya recognized that she didn't need to contort herself into a misfitting relationship. She possessed something infinitely more precious, an authentic friend, someone who perceived her true self and embraced her unconditionally. And perhaps that was sufficient. At least, for the moment. Fresh starts didn't require romantic entanglements, they could consist of acknowledging and treasuring the relationships that were already enriching her existence. The air, freshly turned and redolent with growing things, felt pregnant with possibility.